November 2025 on Insight Edge. 5 long-form videos have just been released for members. Here, you get the first 2 minutes of each of them. No cuts, no fluff, just the beginning of the real work. If by the end you want the full developments, the link is in the description.
Few figures have left as profound a mark on human history as Confucius. In the collective imagination, his name conjures ancient proverbs often quoted, rarely understood. Yet behind these aphorisms lies a philosophy that has shaped an immense cultural sphere, what political scientist Samuel Huntington called, in the clash of civilizations, the Confucian world. This sphere encompasses China, Korea, Vietnam, and even Japan, despite centuries of rivalry. At its core, certain values endure through the ages: collective harmony, respect for hierarchies, and the constant pursuit of self-improvement. These principles, reinterpreted and mobilized over time, have contributed to what some now call the Asian miracle, the transformation in mere decades of a largely rural and impoverished China into a cutting-edge nation of megacities rivaling the West. But before becoming a national symbol or philosophical reference, Confucius was a man. And, as often in history, his story begins with a legend. It is said that his parents, desperate for a male heir, journeyed to a sacred hill near Khufu in the coastal province of Shandong. There they prayed fervently. Their wish was granted. A mythical creature, the Qilin, part wise dragon, part benevolent stag, appeared, bearing a jade book inscribed with 50 prophetic characters. This omen foretold the birth of a child destined to restore harmony to a world in crisis. Centuries later, this tale would be retold to grant Confucius an almost divine stature, a kind of Chinese nativity. The world into which he was born in 551 BCE was anything but harmonious. The vast Yellow River Plain, cradle of Chinese civilization, was fractured into countless rival principalities. Officially, all recognized the authority of the Zhou dynasty. In reality, this central power was a mere shadow. Trade routes stagnated, granaries emptied, and alliances crumbled amid betrayals. This was the spring and autumn period, an unstable era marked by sporadic conflicts and the slow unraveling of an ancient order rooted in rites and customs. Soon these tensions escalated.
Until 2011, historians believe the Viking story began in 793 AD with the bloody raid on the isolated monastery of Lindisfarne in northern England. This massacre of monks, immortalized in Christian chronicles, symbolized the sudden arrival of a terrifying pagan force. But the reality was far more complex. Excavations in Salome, Estonia changed everything. 40 warriors buried in their ships, dated to 650 AD. That's 143 years before the legendary massacre. They were cut down in combat during a major battle, buried with ritual anatomical precision, and strontium analysis linked them to Sweden, near Lake Mälaren. This wasn't a local skirmish, it was an organized military expedition with elite weapons and elaborate afterlife rites, proving that these masters of the sea were already excelling at large-scale raiding and trading long before Western Europe even knew to tremble. Welcome to the full Viking Odyssey, from unforgiving fjords to the trade routes that reshaped the world. Rare insights designed to help you see clearly. Ready to set sail? Let's set the scene. In the 7th century, Norway's fjords, sculpted by wind and sea, were home to often rival clans. Each valley was its own tiny, fragile kingdom of survival. The climate was brutal and unforgiving. Winters that bit to the bone, and summers too short to produce abundant harvests. And yet, despite these hardships, Scandinavia experienced a remarkable population boom. This was driven by a period of relative stability after the crises of the 6th century, better use of coastal lands, and economic growth fueled by early Baltic trade. Family farms, the beating heart of this society, struggled to feed everyone.
December 1, 1991 remains a day etched in Ukrainian memory. At that moment, 92.3% of Ukrainians who went to vote said yeses to independence, including a majority, though more modest in Crimea and the eastern provinces. This vote, which completes the dissolution of the USSR, marks the official birth of a free state. But this apparent triumph hides older tensions. For Moscow, Ukraine remains an essential piece of an imperial heritage. For many Ukrainians, it's above all the cry of a shattered nation, rebuilt in the ruins of totalitarianism. In this video, we will unravel these crossed visions, imperial and traumatic, to understand why a frozen conflict finally erupts in 2022, trapping two peoples and millions of men, women, and children in a battle of unprecedented geopolitical and human dimensions. Ready to go back in time to lift the veil of the present and see the shadows of the past? Let's go. Let's go back to the origins. To understand today's war, we must dive into a past over 1,000 years old, where myths and rival memories intertwine. We are in the 9th century. On the banks of the Dnieper, a principality rises, the Kievan Russes. Kiev then becomes a vibrant crossroads, linking the Baltic Sea to the splendor of Byzantium. Here merchants, soldiers, and priests weave ties between the north and the east, giving birth to a unique culture. At the end of the 10th century, a decisive turning point occurs. The Grand Prince Vladimir chooses Christian baptism, unifying his people under the aegis of orthodoxy. This choice durably links the Russes to the Byzantine world and marks the spiritual birth of the Eastern Slavic nation.
Imagine for a moment all the DNA in your body, if stretched into a single thread, could reach the sun, not just once, but 600 times. A molecule so tiny it escapes the naked eye, yet so vast it defies the imagination. This DNA is the original blueprint of your being. It holds the instructions needed to build everything that makes you, the proteins that make your heart beat, those that power your neurons, and even those that allow your lungs to breathe. Without it, there would be no organized living matter, just molecular chaos. For centuries, humanity groped in the dark. We observed traits being passed down, the color of eyes, the shape of a face, but without understanding how this message traveled from one generation to the next. What was this invisible language connecting parents to their children, and more broadly, all forms of life? Then, step by step, a handful of researchers lifted the veil. Through daring experiments, flashes of intuition, and sometimes at the cost of their lives, they revealed the true nature of DNA, a universal code written with just 4 letters, yet capable of telling the story of all living things. Today, I invite you to trace the thread of this odyssey, from the first clues in the 19th century to the medical and technological revolutions of our time. A journey to the heart of nature's most extraordinary molecule, DNA. Where in 1880, in a damp laboratory in Strasbourg, a man works under the flickering light of an oil lamp, Albrecht Kossel. His hands bear the stains of chemicals. His eyes are weary from sleepless nights of relentless work. He has no advanced microscope, no computer to aid him, just vials, acids, and infinite patience. His goal? To unravel the mysterious substance hidden at the heart of cells, what was then called nuclein, the ancestor of what we now call DNA. Kossel wants to break it down, like a watchmaker dismantling a timepiece, to identify its fundamental components. To do this, he turns to very specific living materials, calf thymus, collected fresh from slaughter, or salmon sperm, rich in genetic material. He grinds these tissues into a thick paste, then treats them with acids to isolate the cell nuclei, those tiny sanctuaries.
What makes Kandinsky unique isn't just what you see on his canvases, but what you feel. His paintings aren't merely to be looked at. They vibrate, like a symphony resonating deep within the soul. And this isn't mystical fluff. Kandinsky literally codified a language of shapes and colors. For him, a sharp yellow was a trumpet pulsing with energy, a deep blue, a cello whispering infinity. A triangle embodied the drive toward ascension, a circle, cosmic eternity. With almost scientific rigor, he sought to connect colors, shapes, and vibrations, drawing from various sources, spiritual traditions, personal experiences, and, among others, ideas from theosophy, which he reinterpreted in his own way. Ready to explore this visual and inner revolution? Let's dive into the universe of Wassily Kandinsky. Wassily Kandinsky was born in 1866 in Moscow to a well-off family. His father, a prosperous tea merchant, provided the family with a comfortable life and opportunities to travel: Moscow, Odessa, and as far as Italy. From an early age, Kandinsky displayed extraordinary sensitivity. He played the piano and cello, and once marveled that every color lives its own mysterious life. Yet this artistic soul initially followed a conventional path. He excelled in law and economics at the University of Moscow. At 30, he was offered a prestigious position, a professorship at the University of Dorpat. But something called him elsewhere. In 1896, he abandoned a promising career and moved to Munich, then the European capital of the avant-garde, to dedicate himself entirely to painting. Thanks to his family's inheritance, he had the rare financial freedom to do so. In Munich, Kandinsky enrolled in the studio of
5 beginnings, 5 complete deep dives, 28 to 40 minutes each, no breaks, no censorship, instant access to all of them, plus the entire back catalog, $5 per month, link in the description and pinned in the comments. See you on the other side.